What's up, Miami Dolphins fans? Welcome to Dolphins Today by Chad Sports. I am your host, Nic Rohloff. We are live on the first day of Dolphins mandatory minicamp, and we have a lot to talk about. Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey, the standouts from the first minicamp practice. We'll look at some trade targets, some potential cut candidates, and we'll also talk about the perfect free agent the Miami Dolphins need to sign. It is going to be a very fun show, but hope everybody had a good weekend and is ready to talk some Dolphins football here early on June 10th. Before we get into everything on today's show, shout out your city for me down in the comments. Let me know where the real ones are watching from. We always like to start off our show by checking in on where the legends are. So shout out to Joey D, Dolphin Dave, Stacy, XI Rain in Northern New York hanging out. We're broadcasting from Dallas, Texas. As always, BZM, it says Malik Washington, Burt Jason Marshall Jr. That is exactly what I tweeted out about 10 minutes ago. Stacy's in Silver Springs, Florida. Tyson's in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Cameron's in North Carolina. Kickoff is in Ohio. Stephen Robinson is in Lincoln, England. I thought I was going to say London for a second. What's up, Ryan, in Tampa? Mario send fins up. Roosevelt says, yes, on my birthday, Richmond, Virginia. Well, happy birthday, Roosevelt. Everybody wish Roosevelt a happy birthday down in the comments. Daryl is in Antioch, California? Maybe. Hopefully I got that right. Preston's in Miramar, Florida. Sean is in Boca Raton. Shout out to Elwood in Guinea, Virginia as well. Shout out to Roosevelt, whose birthday it is. That's awesome stuff. Happy birthday. Appreciate the couple of people that gave a happy birthday to him. Stetson and Mario, two legends. Solo's in Hollywood, Florida. Listen, we got a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a fun one. I'll be honest. When we get to talk actual football, that's always fun. Yeah, we make our daily content on some segments, on some trade rumors, but when we're actually reacting to things that happened on the field when the Dolphins are playing and practicing, that is just my favorite part of the job. So I'm happy that we get to do that today. A couple of final shout-outs here. Ian in Chest, Hunt, England, Slushy in Sarasota, Florida. All right, let's move over to the next question here. Jonnu Smith, he is not attending Miami Dolphins mandatory minicamp. He is subject to fines. And overall, it's not a good look for him or Miami that he is not there during mandatory minicamp. So I want to get people's thoughts. One-word reaction to the Jonnu Smith situation. I'll give my one word in our first segment, but I want to know your real one word on the situation. I see sad from Joey. Sadness from Cameron. Unfortunate from Ryan. Jasmine says sad. Bobby says trade. BZM says disaster. Tyson says worrying. Sammy says damn. Eddie says bye. Mario says pay him. My one word, hate. Not happy. I hate it that Jonnu Smith and the Miami Dolphins are in this public contractual dispute because he wants more money. Listen, I understand why he wants more money. His play last year is worth more than his $4.8 million salary this season. But I also think we have to start kind of putting our foot in the ground a little bit here. Jonnu, you were not very highly thought of across the league last season when the Dolphins signed you to that 2-year, $9 million contract. I say Miami, had you in our scheme, our system, and you had the best year of your career. So, yeah, you can be upset that you want to get paid more, but you should also be thankful to Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, and this Dolphins offensive scheme for giving you the production that you have never had before. So I can understand why he wants more money, but I also feel like, hey, man, you signed a contract. You're 30 years old. Just play out the final year of your deal. I see both sides of the equation. Dolphins says guilt, maybe? Tyler says unworthy. Kickoff says mad. Sean says typical. FinFan says disappointed. All right, let's move off of Jonnu Smith and talk a little bit, maybe some more positive things here. Name your top Miami Dolphins trade target, because I do think Miami could actually make a trade for someone. Obviously, most of the conversation is on who they are going to trade away, whether it's Jalen Ramsey or Jonnu Smith. But if you had to trade for one player right now, who would it be? Because we are going to talk about some blockbuster trade targets on today's show, because some players like Jonnu, like Jalen Ramsey, are not at their team's respective minicamp and might be available on the trade market. We'll mention Jonnu, or we'll mention TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin as maybe some potential blockbuster targets. But who is your one guy? Ryan says Kyle Pitts. Joey D says Greg Newsome. I would say Greg Newsome or Jalen Watson, the two corners, respectively, from the Browns and Chiefs, are among my top two. BZM, Asante Samuel Jr. is a free agent. That is not a trade target. Kyle Pitts from Cameron. Elwood says Patrick Surtain. I would love to add Surtain. He is not on the trade market, and boy, it would cost a pretty penny to try to get him. I think it would cost multiple first-round picks. Crazy to say for a corner, but that's because he's the best corner in all of football, and he's still in his mid-20s. Kickoff says Tyreek Hill in a fourth for McLaurin. Listen, I kind of threw out a Tyreek Hill for Terry McLaurin swap on the show that we're going to do just here in a second. Tyson saying Trayvon Diggs. Okay, I don't hate that. Tyreek Woolen from Joey D. I don't know if Woolen would be available. They have Witherspoon. I think Woolen's their CB2, right? Are they getting rid of him? I don't know. Yeah, excited. That's one of my top two is Jalen Watson and Greg Newsome. XI says Jalen Watson. That's one of my top two for sure. My two for sure. Elwood says Marshawn Lattimore. He was rumored to potentially be on the trade market because he didn't show up to voluntary OTAs, and people are like, well, if he doesn't show up to minicamp, could the Commanders trade him away? But he did show up to minicamp. Justin Reed just signed a free agent contract. That team, I think he signed it with the Raiders. Am I right on that? Saints? Justin Reed with Saints? Saints ain't trading Justin Reed. Why would they trade a player they just signed in free agency? That's like saying the Dolphins are going to trade James Daniels away. We just signed him to a 3-year deal, but we're going to trade him. It doesn't make any sense. So, no on that. All right, let's continue to progress here in our build-up portion of today's stream. Our Super Chat menu. You know what? We don't often have Super Chat menus. I think we alternate every other week. But here is our menu. $10, we'll do a beers cheers. $20, I'll take a shot of tequila. $50, I'll take down a beer bong, a full beer. In case anyone wants to donate to the program to help us grow, help us go live more content on the channel, be greatly appreciated. Helps us grow the fastest. Not necessary, but as long as you are liking, subscribing, commenting, that will help just as much. But if you wanted to donate, we like to show extra gratitude as well. We'll take down some drinks here on a Tuesday afternoon. No biggie if no one does. Just wanted to throw it out there and give another way we can have some fun on this live show. But as we continue to progress forward here, we need to hit that thumbs up icon to get today's show started. We will start the first segment on today's show when we get our 50% like rate. Right now, we are at 80 people watching. Can we get to 40 likes? You know what? Let's get to 40, Lopez. There we go. Well, let's get to 40. We're at 30 likes. We need 10 likes. We get to 10 likes and we get to 40, we'll hit that. We'll get the show started, baby. We'll get the show started. I'm rocking a little old school Dolphins logo Q-zip today. You know, I usually wear my little fancy little, what is that? What color? Cream? Beige? Hoodie? I've decided to switch it up and go with the Q-zip today. Off-white. Is that what it is? That's what the cool kids say, Lopez. You're part of the cool kids. I'm not part of that. Is that off-white? All right, we just got cross 40 likes. Appreciate everybody who's hit that thumbs up icon. Coming up live on the show, we have 4 loaded segments. No Q&A today because we actually had some segment ideas I wanted to do. So maybe next live we'll do a Q&A. We'll see. But we got minicamp news. We got holdout trade targets. We got surprise cut candidates. And then we have my perfect Miami Dolphins free agent target. These are the four segments we are going to do on today's show. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here on this live edition of Dolphins Today. And Lopez, when you are ready, let's get into the first segment, which is the latest surrounding Miami Dolphins mandatory minicamp. The Miami Dolphins begun mandatory minicamp on Tuesday, June 10th, and we are going to have a lot to discuss on minicamp, on who didn't show up, on who performed well, on who didn't perform, some injury news as well. This is Dolphins Today. I am your host, Nic Rohloff. We'll start with the two players that were not in attendance, and it sounded like these were the only two players that were not in the building for Miami. Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Now, these two should come as no surprise, as these two are in the trade rumor mill. Ramsey is going to be dealt. Jonnu Smith, you can say he is putting some pressure on the Dolphins front office with him requesting a new contract going into his final year at $4.8 million. And I do want to give a little bit of an update here because Mike McDaniel did talk to the media before Dolphins practice today and said that Jalen Ramsey's absence and his showing up, it was excused. Remember, if you don't show up to mandatory minicamp, you are subject to fines unless it is excused or due to injury. Ramsey is excused, so they're not fining him. Jonnu Smith, not excused. So there could be a chance, and we don't know this for sure, I mean, that's not public knowledge, but Jonnu Smith may be getting fined by the Dolphins front office for not showing up to mandatory minicamp. You would have known about all of this sooner if you followed me on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. I reacted to those two not being at Dolphins minicamp on Tuesday morning. I also had some highlights and updates from minicamp before we put out this video. So if you want more around the Miami Dolphins, go give me a follow at Nic_Rohloff. We're going to really focus on the Jonnu Smith situation because we made a video before minicamp on Tuesday morning saying that his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, called the Jonnu Smith situation fluid, and we didn't know what that meant. It was, is he going to show up to minicamp? Is he going to not and kind of have a holdout here? Well, I could say this. I don't love where we are at with the Jonnu Smith situation. And the fact that he's not showing up shows me that we might be heading towards an actual trade. And maybe this turns around and they ultimately figure it out, but I'm not that optimistic about that based off the way this front office has moved this offseason and in the past. And it's a really bad thing for Miami because outside of Jonnu Smith, this group is really, really tough in a bad way. Like, if you just take Jonnu Smith away, which I don't think we have to take him away now, it's just not ideal, but Julian Hill, Pharaoh Brown, Tanner Conner, Hayden Rucci, and Jalen Conyers, that is not a tight end room that I am going to have a lot of confidence in, and it shouldn't inspire any confidence into you guys at home either. Like, sure, there has been some positive buzz about Tanner Conner coming out of minicamp and OTAs, but not enough to tell me that's like, oh, that's our new tight end one. No, if you were to actually trade Jonnu Smith, you would save $4 million in cap space, by the way. I would expect Miami to get aggressive on the trade front for a tight end from another team, whether it is Michael Mayer from Las Vegas, whether it is Kyle Pitts from Atlanta, whether it is a maybe Dawson Knox from Buffalo if they'd be willing to trade in division. Either way, if Jonnu Smith is dealt away, this tight end position becomes the worst on the team. Like, I think the players for their respective positions at tight end are actually worse than the players at their respective positions at cornerback for Miami. So you would now need to find a tight end to replace Jonnu Smith. And that would be, I wouldn't say priority number one. I would probably still put corner as priority number one because that positional value is just more than tight end. But you would really need to find a new tight end to replace Jonnu Smith. So I'm going to give you my one word here in a second, but the pinned comment on today's show is this. One word reaction to the Jonnu Smith situation. Just asking for one. Get down in the comments and let me know your thoughts while this ad break plays. My one word for the Jonnu Smith situation, hate. Not Jonnu Smith, not the front office, just hate how this has happened. And listen, I think you could go both ways with what side you want to take. Like Jonnu Smith, he was so good last year, 88 receptions, 884 yards, 10 touchdowns. Does that play deserve more than $4.8 million this year? Yes, it does. But when you also factor in that Jonnu Smith was I wouldn't say a nobody, but he wasn't sought after before the Dolphins signed him to that 2-year, $9 million contract last offseason. And then he comes in, joins the Mike McDaniel scheme, has a career year with Tua and company, and then wants more money. It's just like, well, dude, we gave you a multi-year contract when you probably didn't deserve one last offseason. And you want us to give you more money now because you lived up to your end of the bargain when we didn't have to give you 2 years? Like, this isn't me turning on Jonnu Smith. It's just me acknowledging the front office and coaching staff side of this, like, little debate, if you will. Like, I want Jonnu in Miami. I think he wants to stay here. But I just don't think you should be rolling over to every player that wants more money after a good season, especially when it's a 30-year-old journeyman tight end. So I do get the side that the front office and coaching staff are in, at least in this Jonnu Smith debate. Let's transition from Jonnu Smith to the minicamp takeaways from day one, because we actually do have a lot that we have to discuss. And we'll start with not so good. Zach Wilson, the backup quarterback that Miami signed to a 1-year, $6 million deal worth up to $10 million with incentives based off play if he were to get into games, which you hope he doesn't because that means Tua plays in all 17. He struggled a little bit on OTAs, and he's got off to a rough start on the first day of mandatory minicamp. On Tuesday, June 10th, Zach Wilson threw 2 interceptions in team activities. There should have been a third, but it was dropped, and it just has shown that Wilson, who has struggled early on in this offseason program, continues to display why he was a bust with the second overall pick and why he was the backup to the rookie quarterback Bo Nix a season ago in Denver. He just has not been as impressive as I would have hoped and I would have thought he would have been early in this offseason program. Mike McDaniel sort of acknowledged that, but this is what he had to say when asked about Zach Wilson earlier today at the podium. He's gone through things. He's been scrutinized. He's continuously working at his craft and has supreme arm talent. Guys with arm talent always throw it late. I'm challenging him. So Mike McDaniel even acknowledged that Zach Wilson has been a little bit late through his progressions and his ability to pull the trigger in OTAs and minicamp. But he has acknowledged the talent that he has. I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. I know there were some people out there that were not high on Zach Wilson being signed to be the Dolphins' backup quarterback. I was, and I am not going to shy away from that. As you know, every take that I have, every video that I put out, stays out there forever. I was very optimistic. I was through the moon on the Zach Wilson signing because he is arguably the most talented in terms of just pure arm talent, mobility, ability to throw off platform quarterback that Miami has had since either Jay Cutler or Dan Marino. That's how much talent Zach Wilson has. But the footwork, the decision-making, the accuracy in playing on time has held him back in the past, and it seems to be holding him back early here in the offseason. I'm starting to get nervous. I'm not hitting the full panic button just yet, but if he has a rough training camp and preseason showing, I think we once again will have major question marks for the Dolphins' backup quarterbacks to Tua because Quinn Ewers has struggled early as well. That to be anticipated for a 7th-round developmental rookie. So we would then be in a rough spot if Tua ultimately missed time once again. All right, let's move over to something a little bit more positive. James Daniels sighting. This is something that should make all Dolphins fans have a smile on their face. And I think we need that after the Jonnu Smith and Zach Wilson discussion early in this show. James Daniels was not at Dolphins OTAs. And if you watch the video that I had, and I also put a YouTube short out about the biggest questions going into minicamp, was, are we going to see James Daniels? Well, good news, he was in the building, and he was actually doing a little bit of football activity. David Ferronis had the note that he was on the side doing some light individual work and was not participating in the 7-on-7s or any team setting. But I am just happy he is there working on the sideline. Because, yes, he tore his Achilles in week 4 of last season, but everyone believed, and I would believe that the Dolphins thought this as well based off the contract they gave James Daniels, that he would be available and ready to go for week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. And it's good to see him getting some light work in. That probably puts him on track to start getting some team activities maybe in late July, early August, ramping him up for week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts because he is projected to be one of your starting offensive linemen, whether it's left guard or right guard. Unclear where just yet, but at least he is going to be there. So that is good news. There was no Jonnu Smith update. I tried searching high and low to see where the Dolphins might have played their rookie second-round pick on the offensive line. Now, there was a clip out there that showed Tua throwing a deep ball to Malik Washington on the left side of the field, and it looked like Savinaya was there, meaning he could have gotten a rep at left guard, but there was no true report about where he has consistently played on the offensive line through OTAs and minicamp to this point. But that is a major storyline. Is he playing next to Patrick Paul, or is he playing between two veterans in Austin Jackson and Aaron Brewer? I think that is going to be something sneaky that we keep an eye on throughout the rest of this minicamp experience and early in training camp. But this is why you subscribe to the channel, because we put out daily Miami Dolphins coverage. We go live every Tuesday as well, so join us for those. But we also will have full minicamp coverage on Wednesday, on Thursday, winners and losers after the fact. We even have some cut candidates after minicamp as well coming up. So hit that sub button and join the channel today. Another positive piece of news, Tyreek Hill got some work as well. We've seen Tyreek Hill in the building at OTAs and minicamp, but we have not seen him catch any footballs as he's recovering from that wrist injury. He is on track to be ready for training camp, which is good. But Cameron Wolfe had the first note here. He started to catch passes today in individual drills, which it is the first time that we've seen Tyreek Hill catch a football since his offseason wrist surgery. Now, Wolfe said you could tell he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable, and it's a step in progress, but the hope is that he'll be able to resume team drills and training camp. And I think this is a good sign. It's more indication, because if you go back towards the early part of the offseason, I think Mike McDaniel actually mentioned this at the Combine in February, around the time that Tyreek had surgery, that he would be ready to resume football activities right around training camp in early July. Well, the fact that he's starting to catch a little bit of footballs tells me that that process and that timeline is consistent with what the coaching staff and front office has said, and Tyreek Hill will be ready to roll in full 11-on-11s, team drills, 7-on-7s, and maybe even one preseason game as well in August. So I like where Tyreek Hill's at. I know a lot of people, including myself, have wondered if they could trade him, or even said that they think they should trade Tyreek Hill. It doesn't look like Miami has any indication to do that, and it looks like he will be ready for week 1 without a question, assuming he doesn't get injured again against the Indianapolis Colts, which is a good sign if you are keeping Tyreek on the roster. A couple more takeaways to get to, but make sure you get your Dolphins hoodie on sale right now, $40 off, usually $75. You can get it for $35 when you go to chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. I've said it consistently throughout a couple other times we've shown this. The white with the palm trees and the orange and aqua accent is just absolutely beautiful. Grab yours one more time. Links in the description and comments of today's video, chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. Let's talk about the safety room. Could the safeties be shaping form and who we're going to see start and who we're going to ultimately see as the safeties on the 53-man roster initially? Because a couple of these safeties had interceptions on the first day of minicamp. I mentioned that Zach Wilson threw 2 interceptions, should have been 3. One of those INTs came from your 5th-round pick out of Maryland, Dante Trader Jr. The report was that Wilson tried to fit a ball over the middle of the field to Taj Washington, overthrew it, and Trader Jr., playing that free safety center field role, was able to take advantage of the overthrow and make the interception. The other safety that forced a turnover was Elijah Campbell, who intercepted Quinn Ewers. Now, I will say, who knows how accurate the throw was or anything like that, but the report out there was that the interception by Campbell was off of the hands of UDFA wide receiver out of Northwestern, A.J. Henning, and maybe that was more on Henning, maybe it was more on Ewers. No reports out there did not say, but Elijah Campbell, fighting for a roster spot, made a nice play. And I know I might be jumping the gun here, but I have kind of laid the groundwork for this over the course of the offseason. I think the 6th-round pick from a year ago, Patrick McMorris, could be the odd man out on this roster if the Dolphins keep 4 safeties. Like, you're going to keep Ashton Davis, you're going to keep Iafatu Melifonwu, and you're going to keep Dante Trader Jr., who you selected in the 5th round. If you keep 4 safeties, then Elijah Campbell and McMorris will battle for that final spot. If you keep 5, McMorris will be on the roster. But if you keep 4, McMorris and Campbell are going to battle. But Campbell provides a lot more versatility in terms of playing nickel, being a special teams ace. So if it came down to those two, I believe that Campbell would likely get the nod. So Patrick McMorris has to have a strong camp, strong preseason in order to convince this Dolphins roster or coaching staff and front office that they should keep 5 safeties, because I don't see Trader Jr. or Campbell getting cut. So if they don't keep 5, well, Patrick Morris, appreciate you being a Dolphin for a year. So what say you? Do you think Patrick McMorris could be released by the Dolphins late August before the 53-man roster is officially announced? Type Y for yes or type N for no. All right, some quick hitters. Ethan Bonner almost had an INT. I mentioned that Zach Wilson should have thrown a 3rd interception. That was because Ethan Bonner had it go right through his hands on an out route that he broke in on. Zach Wilson was a little late throwing the football. Positive for Ethan Bonner. Tua and Waddle dominating again. A couple 40-yard passes. I mean, that's what you would expect against this weak Dolphins secondary, but it's good to see Jalen Waddle and Tua on the same page. All reports are those two chemistry has been off the charts. Malik Washington looked good. I mentioned it. He had a 40-yard touchdown to close practice on a seam route up the left sideline. Tua dropped a beautiful bucket. You want to see the highlight, go to my Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. That clip is on there. He beat Jason Marshall Jr., the 5th-round pick out of Florida, on that go route. Malik Washington, I believe, is going to have a pretty large role on this offense in the slot and as that 3rd, 4th wide receiver with Nick Westbrook-Akini. Artie Burns had an interception as well today. The veteran former Miami Hurricane corner trying to fight for a roster spot, so he's off to a good spot. But then Grayson Murphy, the UDFA edge who played, I believe, at Colorado State, but I knew he came out of UCLA last season. He had a good kind of early training camp and preseason last year, and then he got hurt and was out for the entire year. But he's back making plays. He was good at OTAs, according to reports. He had a sack today on the first day of minicamp. Grayson Murphy could be fighting for a roster spot. Could be a sleeper to keep our eye on as we get closer and closer to training camp in the preseason. But like I mentioned earlier, if you want more Dolphins news, updates, and highlights from minicamp, training camp, and when we get to the season, I'll have everything as well. Go follow me at Nic_Rohloff. That handle is also in the description and comments of today's video. I appreciate trying to grow my following on Twitter, so go join me for more. All right, first segment in the books down. Appreciate everybody hanging out here on today's show. Over 120 people watching. We got more segments to come up here, but that was everything from the first day of minicamp. One-word reaction to the Jonnu Smith situation. I'm all ears. I saw during the video, bad. That's all I saw, I think. That's all I saw. I see confusing. A lot of people saying, yes, Patrick Morris could be cut. I don't want to see him get cut because he was good last year before he got hurt and then never really got any PT last year. But David's not happy. Cameron says, quick question, what happened to Mo Kamara? He's still on the roster. Nothing happened to him. Nothing happened. I think he's edge 4 this year. Just haven't heard a lot about him standing out, which maybe is a bad thing. We'll see more on Muhammad Kamara when we get to training camp and when we get to see him get a lot of reps in the preseason. I think if you're going to talk about players that are going to get a lot of reps in the preseason, I think Mo Kamara is up there for sure. You're going to see a lot of these safeties get reps. I think every corner is going to play every preseason game. Like, they're going to sign a veteran, and whatever veteran they sign probably won't play a lot. But Smith, Duck, Bonner, Burns, Marshall Jr., they're all going to play basically the entire preseason. Maybe not Kader Kohu because he's the one corner Miami can't afford to lose currently on the roster. But, man. All right. One segment in the books on today's show. Appreciate everybody still watching. Let's get into our second segment as we still got over 100 people tuning in. Our Super Chat menu if you guys want to have some more fun on today's show. We're going to get into the trade targets portion of today's show. So, appreciate everybody hanging out. Let's get into some trade targets here. Could be Blockbuster, holdout players. Let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about some Miami Dolphins trade targets. I'm Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today. There are some big-name players holding out of their team's respective minicamp that could ultimately be on the trade block. I mean, you see it with Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith for Miami. Well, what other players out there could Miami maybe go out and target? Now, we know the team needs for Miami are still tight end. If Jonnu Smith gets dealt, offensive line depth, and cornerback is the most part after Jalen Ramsey departs. Right now, Miami has $13.6 million in cap space, but I do want to make it clear, once they inevitably deal Jalen Ramsey away, they will free up $9.9 million. Then they would have $23.5 million in cap space. Let's get into the first Dolphins trade target that is currently holding out. That is TJ Watt. Now, these are all going to be big names for the most part. And I know some people might think it's unrealistic they trade for TJ Watt. But, hey, it could be interesting. I mean, I'm not putting it out of the realm of possibility that Miami swings big. Do I think it's likely? No. But like I mentioned, I think Watt, who is seeking a really big deal, could the Steelers look to move off of him if they can't agree to anything? Maybe. Like I said, I'm not going to rule it out. So you have to ask the question, could Miami be interested in acquiring TJ Watt? We'll talk more about him in a second. But listen, folks, if the Dolphins make a trade, whether they are acquiring a player, whether they are trading away a player, we will have you covered with every piece of news that you need. Subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss a piece of content we put out because it is daily. And when those trades ultimately occur, we'll be the first one to let you know. Okay, when you get back to TJ Watt, he's seeking a massive new contract. I mean, there was a lot of Myles Garrett trade rumors earlier this offseason, and then he signed an extension where he's getting paid $40 million per year. I don't know if TJ Watt wants that, but he certainly is going to want at least $35 million per season. And can you really blame him? I mean, he's been probably the best edge rusher in football over the last 4 years. Like, when he has played a full season, which has essentially been 3 of the last 4 years, he had 22.5 sacks, 19 sacks, and then 11.5 sacks. This guy is as dynamic as it comes. But another underrated thing that he does extremely well is what he realizes when he can't get to the quarterback. Not going to win every rep. The great ones don't. Like, the best evers can't win every rep. So when he knows he's done on a specific rep, he floats around the line of scrimmage, reads the quarterback's eyes, makes sure they don't scramble out to the pocket, and then gets his hands on the ball at the line of scrimmage, forcing a lot of incompletions or tip balls that ultimately become interceptions for their linebackers or corners. So he is such a multifaceted player where he can get after the quarterback, he can stop the run, he can disrupt you at the line of scrimmage, Like, he is just a hard-nosed, leading football player that would ultimately just instill more toughness and more of a culture to this Dolphins defense and locker room, which I think would be welcomed no matter what. Now, if you're thinking trade, here is an interesting idea. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I want to make this very clear. We're just talking about some potential trade targets. What if you traded Tyreek Hill to Pittsburgh for TJ Watt? There is a lot of buzz, there always is, about the Steelers looking for a new wide receiver. They traded for DK Metcalf. They signed Aaron Rodgers. Could they say, well, we don't want to pay TJ Watt what he's looking for? Maybe we trade him away before we lose him for nothing. We don't want to hold out. We don't want the distraction. We'll create the best wide receiver duo in football in Tyreek Hill and DK Metcalf. Maybe might be number 2 behind Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but you get the point. Now, the question is, would it make sense for Miami? I don't know if it does. You have 3 unbelievable edge rushers already in Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb. You have Mo Kamara and Quentin Bell as your 4-5 in all likelihood in terms of your edge. Like, I'll say this. It's probably not worth it to trade Tyreek Hill for TJ Watt, because then you would have to extend TJ Watt for $35 million per season without a question. Like, it's probably not worth it. But I'll say this again. You have no future at edge outside of Chop Robinson right now. And I'll just leave it at that. All right, pin comment on today's show. Would you trade for TJ Watt? Type T if you would trade. Type P if you would pass. Would you take the swing, add TJ Watt to this roster? I won't just say for Tyreek Hill. Let's just say in any trade. T for trade, P for pass. Well, in the spirit of talking about edge rushers, we could talk about Trey Hendrickson as well, the edge from the Cincinnati Bengals, who his holdout seems a lot more motivated to end in a trade than maybe one of the best defensive players in Steelers history in TJ Watt. Similar to TJ, Trey Hendrickson is a dominant pass rusher who wants a massive new contract. Now, I do not think he wants to be paid as much as TJ Watt wants to get paid. I think Trey Hendrickson is just looking for $30, $31, $32 million. And you hear that and say, just that much money. And I say, yeah, I know, it's probably crazy to say. But like I said, Garrett got 40. TJ Watt wants at least 35. Trey wanting 30 would be a pretty good bargain. Because he, over the past couple of seasons, has been actually better than TJ Watt. Like, yeah, at least in terms of getting after the quarterback, over the past 2 years, both players have played 17 games. TJ Watt has had a 19-sack season and an 11.5 sack season. Hendrickson's had back-to-back 17.5. Quick math, 35 is more than 30.5. So he actually has been more productive on a Bengals defense that doesn't even have as good as a well-rounded attack as Pittsburgh. You could say Watt benefits from him having some good teammates on the interior and on the edge like Alex Highsmith and others to be named. Hendrickson hasn't been able to have that for the most part, and he's still putting up ridiculously good numbers. Like, I'll say this, and this goes to the Watt conversation, this goes to the Trey Hendrickson conversation. As fun as it would be to create the best pass rush in all of football in Trey Hendrickson, Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. And who knows, maybe they trade Jalen Phillips in one of those deals for Watt or Hendrickson and just create Chubb, Chop in the one you trade for. I'm likely not trading for an expensive edge. But to play devil's advocate, as I just mentioned, quick little counterpoint, you have no long-term play at edge outside of Chop Robinson. This could very well be Bradley Chubb's last season on the roster. Jalen Phillips is under contract for just this season. This is his 5th-year player option year, so he's not under contract for next season. And there's no reason to believe Mo Kamara could be a lead edge too. So I could see Miami saying, you know what? We have no future at the edge position. What if we traded Jalen Phillips in draft capital for either TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson? And now you have a future at the position in Trey or TJ with Chop, with Chubb or Mo being your third guy. That's the counterpoint onto why maybe a trade could actually go down. Now, this one's a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver from the Washington Commanders. And you say, why is this one more interesting? They have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'll explain more here in a second. But shocker on Terry McLaurin, he wants a new contract. He is entering the final year of his deal. And I can understand why he wants a new contract. He has been there his entire career. He has been a trooper, never making a fuss of when he had bad quarterback play. He's a little bit older, so this is his last chance to really cash in on a big-time contract. He wants close to $30 million per season, if not exactly 30. I think he wants similar to that DK Metcalf contract that he ultimately got from the Pittsburgh Steelers after they acquired him from Seattle, which I think he deserves. You see the stats. He consistently puts up 4 or 5 touchdowns a year. He's had 1,000 yards each of the last 4 seasons. And the one thing that he has never had is elite quarterback play. He finally got it with Jane Daniels, and he had 80 catches, 1,100 yards, and 13 tutties. Yeah, I think he would fit this roster really, really well. And the question I would ask, similar to the TJ Watt hypothetical Tyreek for TJ, would you trade Tyreek to Washington for Terry McLaurin and then extend him? Because Tyreek Hill is not going to want a new contract, right? He's got such a large cap hit and a number for next season where he's likely just going to get released from whatever team he plays for, if it's Miami or not. So if you're Washington, you trade for Tyreek, all right, 1-year deal. And he's not going to make a fuss about it like Terry McLaurin is right now. And if you're Miami, you say, well, we're probably going to release Tyreek after this year anyway. McLaurin and Jalen Waddle are a much better combination because McLaurin's got the ability to beat you deep, play over the middle of the field, better hands and a more physical wide receiver to complement Jalen Waddle's blazing speed and route running. I would honestly think about it if I was Miami. The question is, would Washington want to do that? The one thing with Terry is that he is older than you think. He's turning 30 in September. And are you giving McLaurin a 3-year, $30 million per season contract where it's like a 3 for $90 extension for his age 31, 32, and 33 seasons? He has shown no sign of decline, so I don't think it would be that scary of a contract to give out, but it is one thing to give you a little bit cause for concern. But I will say, I think I like Terry McLaurin getting traded for and swapping Hill for Terry more than trading for either Trey Hendrickson or TJ Watt. All right, we talk about 3 blockbuster trade targets that are holding out right now. I've got 2 more that aren't holding out here in a second. But name your top Dolphins trade target that you would like to see Miami pursue. Take Chris Greer's job. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Want to name quickly other trade targets. Now, we've talked about Greg Newsome. We've talked about Jalen Watson in the past. We're not going to talk corner on today's show. But we do know that a tight end might be necessary with Jonnu Smith on the out. So Michael Mayer, the Las Vegas Raiders tight end, who's been on the trade block in the past. But there's also an interesting rumor out there that Dillon Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick by the Cleveland Browns, could be a Dolphins trade target. There is a rumor out there that I think I'm going to do a full video on Dillon Gabriel and a potential trade for him coming up here soon. But I do want to just do a quick cliff notes. The rumor is that Miami was going to take Dillon Gabriel with their pick at the end of the 3rd round at 101. Ultimately, he went a couple picks ahead of them, 99 with Gabriel. I think it was 99, to be exact. And then they traded back. They viewed him as a good fit. And if Dillon Gabriel loses the QB battle to Shedeur Sanders and is behind Shedeur, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco, well, then they might just ultimately trade Dillon Gabriel. And maybe Miami is like, you know what? We like him more than Quinn Ewers. We'll take him as our backup if Zach Wilson continues to struggle. So, a little quick Cliff Notes version there. But like I said, full video on that coming soon over the next probably week or so. But that's why you subscribe. And make sure you are subscribed, turn on notifications, so when we make that video, you don't miss a piece of that. But we also have more content coming out around Minicamp and more news and rumors. So subscribe, join the channel today. All right, segment number 2 in the books. Name your top Dolphins trade target as we are going to get into a video on cut candidates coming out here in a second. Joey D says Terry, Greg Newsome, and maybe Tyreek Hill as 3 different trade targets. Anyone else got any trade targets you'd like to see Miami go after? Like I said, my top 2 are Jalen Watson, the corner from the Chiefs, and Greg Newsome, the corner from Cleveland. Those are my 2 favorites. That's assuming that Jonnu Smith stays on the roster. If you told me Jonnu Smith is not on the roster, then my number 1 trade target would probably become Kyle Pitts. But let me know yours. Tyson says, if we get Jair, would you mind Dolphins trading for Stephon Diggs instead of signing Asante Samuel Jr.? No. Because if you sign Jair Alexander, it's probably going to be a 1-year contract with incentives to get close to $10 million, I would guess. And if that's the case, then I'm not trading for a corner in Diggs. It has a pretty high cap number. Rodney, Rasul Douglas is a free agent. You would not need to trade for him. Sorry, I was just reading some stuff on Twitter. And now we can get into the next show. No one super chatted today. If anyone wants to, we could have some fun. If not, that's fine. But with that being said, let's get in to the next segment on today's show. It is a good one. Dolphins mandatory minicamp has passed, and on today's show, we're going to look at some surprise cut candidates after Dolphins minicamp. Who could get that little snip from the roster? Now, I will say I do not think that any player would be released going into training camp, but where we stand now with how people performed at minicamp and other roster rumors and news, who could ultimately get snipped when we get down to 53 men at the end of August? Before I give you 4 players that I think could be cut, I want you to call your shot and name a player the Dolphins should cut. Name a player, position. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section on who you think the Dolphins could cut. My first surprise cut candidate is going to be Patrick McMorris, the safety. The 6th-round pick from Cal in the 2024 draft is on the outside looking in at this point, and I really do believe that. This depth chart is not a pretty one, so you might say, why would he get cut? Well, it all depends on how many safeties the Dolphins keep. You signed Ifeatu Melifonwu and Ashton Davis to 1-year deals in free agency this year. You're not cutting them, and they're also good enough to not be cut anyway. You drafted Dante Trader Jr. in the 5th round out of Maryland. He is not going to be cut because he's a 5th-round pick, and he has more draft capital invested into him than Patrick McMorris. But Elijah Campbell and McMorris are the 2 players that are likely going to be fighting for that 4th roster spot on the depth chart at safety. And as I just briefly mentioned, how many do the Dolphins keep? Like, this whole question on if McMorris will be on the 53-man roster or not is solely dependent on if the Dolphins keep 5 or 4 safeties. So in the spirit, I wanted to take a look back at, under head coach Mike McDaniel, how many safeties are usually kept on the initial 53-man roster, and here are the numbers. Last season, the Dolphins kept 5 safeties. They obviously had Holland, they had Poyer, they had Marcus May, they had Elijah Campbell, and they had Patrick McMorris. In 2023, they had 5 safeties, headlined by Javon Holland, Deshaun Elliott, Brandon Jones, and others. But in 2022, they kept 4. So there is precedent under Mike McDaniel that they could keep 4 safeties. And I'll say this right now when it comes to McMorris. If Miami ends up going back to their 2022 roster mold and they keep only 4 of them, McMorris will be cut. I just don't see a world unless McMorris is absolutely unbelievable, which would then probably force them to keep 5 safeties. The point is this: I don't see them cutting Elijah Campbell because he has so much versatility on this roster. He can play safety. He can play a little bit of nickel corner. But he's also one of your top special teams aces. He is one of your best coverage guys on special teams, on punt, and in kickoff. So he has so much value on that end of the field, and that is something that Miami needs to get better at from years prior. So why would you cut your best one? I think you're going to see the 4 safeties I mentioned earlier lock in on the roster. The question is McMorris going to be good enough to force the Dolphins to keep 5 safeties? Because if he is, well, then welcome to the roster. But if he's average and the Dolphins are fine keeping 4 and wanting to keep an extra position player at a different position, well, then McMorris could be on the outside looking in. Next one's a little bit of a stunner as well, which is why these are surprise cut candidates. Quentin Bell. Yeah, I think he could get cut, actually. I do. Bell was a pleasant surprise last year for Miami. He was not anticipated to make the roster, but he did. Now, some of that had to do with some injuries, obviously. No Bradley Chubb. Jalen Phillips had a lot of questions to him. Your edges last year were Quentin Bell, Mo Kamara, Tyus Bowser. I think he was signed during the season. My memory's kind of shaky nowadays. But Quentin Bell was on the roster for all 17 games last season. Didn't get a ton of run, but he was fine in the games that he played. 27 tackles and had a sack. Re-signed on a 1-year, $1.25 million contract in free agency. Well, the question here is with Quentin is, once again, with McMorris, how many edges do the Dolphins keep? I think there are locks for 4 right now. Chop, Jalen, and Bradley are all going to make the roster. There is not really any explanation there. I think Mohamed Kamara is a roster lock. He was on the roster all year last year, 5th-round pick. I have a lot of optimism for Mo Kamara. I do. So I think he's going to be on the team. The Dolphins kept 5 edges last year, but they only kept 4 at the start of the 53-man roster in 2022 and 2023. So that 5th roster spot at edge is not guaranteed. And even if it is guaranteed, say the Dolphins are absolutely keeping 5 edges, is it a guarantee that Quentin Bell is that 5th edge? Grayson Murphy has had a really good start to his offseason, the UDFA from UCLA last year. He was good at OTAs. He was good at the beginning of minicamp. Could he end up being your 5th edge? You also have some other UDFAs making a push for the roster as well. If you keep 5 edges, Grayson Murphy and Quentin Bell will be battling it out for that spot. If you keep 4, well, I think it's a moot point. And one of those guys, whether it's Murphy or Bell, will ultimately try to be kept on the Dolphins practice squad. Make sure you are subscribed because we have coverage of the Miami Dolphins every single day. And we're looking ahead pretty early here. But at the end of August, when the Dolphins roster is trimmed to 53 people, we will have a full video breaking that down. But we have breakdowns every single day. Subscribe now. Don't miss a thing. Join the channel and join the family here at Dolphins Today. All right, another player that has frequently been on my cut candidate list, Channing Tindall, the linebacker. I thought he was a cut candidate last year, but the Fins ultimately kept 5 inside linebackers. Tindall got some run on special teams and was the backup to Anthony Walker Jr., Duke Riley, David Long Jr., and Jordan Brooks to start the year. Obviously, you saw that position have a lot of different players come in and out with Tyrell Dodson in, David Long Jr. out, Walker Jr. in, blah, 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 blah. I think Channing Tindall's time on the Dolphins have come to a close. Former 3rd-round pick. This hasn't been good. It's time to cut bait. It's time to end the experiment. You have 4 linebackers guaranteed, in my opinion, for a roster spot. Jordan Brooks, Tyrell Dodson, KJ Brett, Willie Gay Jr. So you might keep 4 linebackers. And I know the conversation so much is how much do the Dolphins keep, and some of it will be decided. Like, if the Dolphins keep 5 linebackers on the interior, maybe they only keep 4 safeties. If the Dolphins keep 5 safeties, maybe they only keep 4 linebackers, 4 edges. Like, there is a domino effect here. So, yes, there are roster battles for, the end of the depth chart, but there's also battles of, is McMorris playing so well that we would rather have him at safety as a 5th guy than having Channing Tindall as the 5th linebacker. Those conversations do happen. It's not just black and white with position battles. The play of a guy at safety could absolutely impact the Dolphins' decision on keeping an amount of linebackers. But if you do keep a fifth linebacker, I think I would rather have the UDFA out of Auburn, Eugene Asante. And I've been pretty open about that. It's a linebacker that is very experienced, 6 years in college. He's fast, ran a 4.48, 3 years at North Carolina, 3 years at Auburn. I think having him as your fifth linebacker / special teams guy, which, by the way, he had over, I believe, 400 snaps at special teams. It might be more. It might be closer to 600. But he at least had 400 snaps at special teams over his 6-year college career. You actually don't see that many snaps from a draftable linebacker. I know he wasn't drafted, but someone like that at special teams at the collegiate level. So Eugene Asante, due to his speed, his special teams experience, I would much rather have him on the roster as my fifth linebacker if they kept 5 over Channing Tindall. All right, we're going to get into our final cut candidate here in just a second. But make sure you get your Dolphins gear ready now. Fall is going to be here quicker than you realize. And this Dolphins hoodie is on sale right now for $40 off at chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. Sweet white hoodie with the orange and aqua palm tree accent. I absolutely love it. Grab yours today before sizes run out. chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. Final cut candidate. This one is no surprise. Jake Bailey. I'm actually sick and tired of making cut candidate and cut projection videos and having to consistently put Jake Bailey in there. And because I'd be doing my job incorrectly if I did not put Jake Bailey in here, because if we were to talk about which player is the most likely to be cut from that group of 4 players, it's without a doubt Jake Bailey. I don't even know why he's still on the roster. They signed Ryan Stonehouse in free agency. They added Craig Aukerman to the staff as the new special teams coordinator. Stonehouse was the punter with Aukerman in Tennessee in 2022 when Stonehouse set rookie records and was a second-team All-Pro. So, there is no world where Jake Bailey beats out Ryan Stonehouse for the punter job. I really don't think there is. So why not just cut him now and save $1.9 million? Because we talk about signing free agents, like a Rasul Douglas, like a Asante Samuel Jr., making trades. Well, if you cut Jake Bailey, you trade Jalen Ramsey, you're now creating $11.8 million in cap space. You have 13.6 right now. That would take you to quick math, 25.4. Nailed it, I think. Which would give you more flexibility to sign a Douglas, a Samuel, both of them. Make a trade maybe and take in more salary. Make sure Jonnu Smith is paid so he stays on the roster. I just don't understand why they're holding on to Jake Bailey. I know it's only 1.9 mil, but that could come into play. It could. Quick little sidebars, my wheels are turning, the hamster's moving in the brain. Would you sacrifice Jake Bailey in that 1.9 million and say, we'll take that $1.9 million from Jake Bailey. See ya. We'll roll with Ryan Stonehouse, and then just immediately give the $1.9 million to Jonnu Smith and say, here's a $1.9 million bump in your salary, Jonnu. Are we good for this year on a 1-year contract? That probably is good enough, right? That's my point here. Why not cut him? He's not going to make the roster. Free the $1.9 million cap space, and let's do it. Come on. All right, so who is the most likely to be cut out of the players we're talking about? I think Jake Bailey is a foregone conclusion. It's a matter of when, not if. So let's ask about the other 3 players. Who is the most likely? PM for Patrick Morris, type QB for Quentin Bell, or type CT for Channing Tindall? I'm going to give you an answer that I don't think many people expected. My sneaky answer, I think it could be Quentin Bell, man. Most likely. I like Quinn, but he's only a 1-year, $1.25 million contract. He was a UDFA originally, so it's not like they invested a draft pick into him. I really think Grayson Murphy is playing well. And with Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and Chop Robinson all being fully healthy, maybe this coaching staff views the edge as we don't really need 5 guys because we have such a good top 3. If no injuries to those top 3 occur in training camp in the preseason and they're fully healthy for week 1, I could see them saying, we'll just keep a couple guys on our practice squad, and if we actually do suffer an injury, then we'll just sign another guy from there or go out and sign someone in free agency. So I do think the Dolphins, if there was one position out of linebacker, safety, edge, that could actually just keep 4 guys rather than 5, I I think it could be edge, assuming your top 3 stay fully healthy and they expect to jump up in production from 5th-round pick Mohamed Kamara. All right, I'll do it for this episode of Dolphins Today. Appreciate everybody for hanging in with us here on this episode. Join the channel today for daily content. I'm Nic Rohloff. As always, go Fins. All right, name a player that should be cut. Frank O'Connor's in the building. What's up, Frank? I know, Frank. You've been MIA. Just kidding. I know everyone's busy, and we just appreciate anyone who tunes in and hangs out with us on our Tuesday live show. Glad you could join in and catch this one as well. We got one more segment to go here. Joey D says Channing Tindall. Cameron says Tindall. Sylvester says Tindall. So most of y'all think Tindall. Gaming with Fire says Julian Hill. I would have originally said Julian Hill, but with the Jonnu Smith rumors out there, you cannot gamble by cutting a tight end that knows the scheme and knows the system. As much as we do not think Julian Hill is very good, he knows the scheme and system better than anyone else outside of Jonnu, and you can't get rid of that if you ultimately trade Jonnu Smith. So, kind of tough there. All right, before we get into the final segment on today's show, which is a little talk about a free agent that I think is the perfect fit for the Miami Dolphins, do want to quickly remind people of our Super Chat menu. If you feel so inclined to donate, it's greatly appreciated. Help us grow this channel, but the best way to help us grow is liking, commenting, subscribing anyway, so it's just an extra way to help us grow. $10, I'll do beers cheers. $20, I'll take a shot at tequila. And $50 is the beer bong. Haven't got a Super Chat today. It's fine, but anyone is appreciated. Oh, and my guy Frank O'Connor is in the building. Oh, this is not what I want to see, though, Frank. This is not what I want to see, Frank. Yeah, I feel bad, Frank. Frank, I'll read it out loud. You know what, Frank? I'm going to actually take a shot for that instead of the beers cheers because I'm taking a shot instead of the beers cheers. Frank says he's looking for a new job soon. I'm getting messed over. Still working hard. Love seeing this to make my day with the news. Well, Frank, that breaks my heart that you're getting jobbed over there, whatever your job is. You told me, I believe, you travel for computer stuff, right, Frank? I'm not a smart person. I don't claim to be a smart person. And that's why I just say computer stuff, because I don't know jack shit about that stuff. But, Frank, I believe that's what you've told me in the past. I appreciate the $10 super chat, man. That's tough. Never like to see someone get jobbed, man. Appreciate you, Frank. Glad I can make your day a little bit better, but my goodness. Hey, you know what? Everybody in the chat spam F for Frank. One of the legends, one of the real ones at the channel. Show him some love. He showed us a lot of love. I want to give the love back. Spam the Fs in the chat for Frank. We believe in you, Frank. Salute to you. Salute to you, Frank. Come on, I want to see everybody jump in on it. I just don't want to see just us spamming F for Frank. LM, Sylvester, Cameron, Joey. Appreciate y'all. Lost Texan. It's got to show my guy some love, man. I say we're a family here at Dolphins, and I truly mean that. You going through anything bad in your life? Don't want to hear that, unfortunately. You could tell me. I want to hope that be right. You could say it here. I just don't want to hear it because I don't like to see you guys have bad days. Everyone has them, unfortunately. Bad moments in their life. But, well, Frank, knowing you, my friend, you're going to find something even better than what you were doing. And I truly believe that you will come out on the other side better than you were beforehand, Frank. I believe. Yeah. Appreciate you, Frank. All right. Now that we got our uplifting moment of the day here on a Tuesday, June 10th, gotta love it. Let's get into the final segment on today's show, which is my perfect Dolphins free agent target. Now, it's a player we've talked about a lot, but I want to talk about him even more. So you guys might know where I'm going with this on our live show. So With that being said, let's get this show on the road. Asante Samuel Jr. is the perfect Miami Dolphins free agent target still available. And I would, at this point in the offseason, call it an absolute necessity that the Dolphins get Asante Samuel Jr. in their building before the season begins and before training camp begins in late July. I'll explain why here, but in a recent article from Bleacher Report, they went through some of the top free agents under 30 still available and had some potential landing spots. Miami was on there for a couple of them. It was Jair Alexander and Asante Samuel Jr., but I actually think Samuel Jr. is the better fit for Miami. And they were landed as a landing spot alongside the New Orleans Saints. We're going to talk more about Asante Samuel Jr., but make sure you give us a follow over on our IG. At Dolphins Today IG is our handle. We currently have 912 followers. We're trying to get to a K. When we get to 1,000, we'll be doing a special video for getting to 1,000 followers on Instagram. So follow us over there. We put out more posts, short-form content covering the Miami Dolphins in between our YouTube videos. So if you want wall-to-wall, 365, 24/7 coverage, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you go follow us over on Instagram. As we think about Asante Samuel Jr., we know for an 1,000% certainty the Dolphins desperately need a corner, right? I have taken Jalen Ramsey off the depth chart. He is not going to be here. Maybe by the time you're watching this video, he has already been traded. But it's clear that Storm Duck and Cam Smith can't be your top two corners if you are a serious football team. If you're telling me we're tanking, cool, go ahead. But we're not. And as many fans want to say sometimes we are tanking for 2026, that's just not the case. Because when you think of this coaching staff, this front office, they both could be fired if they have another bad season. That being Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. So they need to be competitive. If they go 6-11, I think they're gone. The only way they keep their roster, their jobs, if they go 9-8 or 10-7, make the playoffs. And even then, if they don't win a playoff game, I could argue they should still be fired. You need a cornerback bad. So when we are talking free agents, we have to talk about corners first. We can also talk about potential trade targets and trade options for Miami as well. But Asante Samuel Jr. just makes so much sense. Maurice Moten from Bleacher Report believes that as well. Maurice said that the Herald's Barry Jackson reported that the Dolphins have reached out to Asante Samuel Jr. We've known that. As cornerback Jalen Ramsey prepares for a new chapter elsewhere, Miami makes the most sense for Samuel as a landing spot if he is fully cleared after his follow-up examination. And that's kind of where the conversation has to be had on Asante Samuel Jr. It's all about the medicals. The reason why he's not signed yet is still because of his medicals. Like, his play is a corner that probably gets $15 million per season on a multi-year contract. Like, based off what you saw other corners get this free agency, like, if Samuel Jr. was fully healthy and played a full 17 games last season, didn't have a neck injury that put his future and long-term and longevity in doubt, I think he could have got a 3-year, $45 million deal like our good friend Javon Holland did. So to me, if you're Miami, when that medical checkups in early July happens, if it gets cleared, sign him ASAP. Like, Jair Alexander's a better player, sure, but I think he is a better fit for Miami due to his youth, his locker room presence. Not to say it's some elite locker room presence, as that Jair Alexander's got some major locker room presence concerns. Like, Asante Samuel Jr. is the top guy I want Miami to sign in the rest of the offseason, which is why I think he's the perfect fit. Do you agree? Should the Dolphins sign Asante Samuel Jr. this offseason? Type S if you think they should sign him. Type P if you think they should pass. I am certainly typing my S. All right, let's talk about Asante Samuel Jr., the football player now, not the injury concern. Let's take it back to 2023 when he played the majority of the season. Didn't play a lot last year. Very limited due to that neck and shoulder injury. Well, you see the difference in snap when he's purely in coverage. 147 snap man coverage, 340 zone. The Dolphins play predominantly zone at 65%, but most teams play more zone than man anyway. Now, with that being said, the part that's very enticing about Samuel Jr., He's very good in both. I mean, look at his QB rating when targeted in man coverage in 2023. That's elite. Look at the completion percentage, just barely over 50%. Also took the ball away twice. Has excellent skills when it comes to getting his hand on the ball when the ball's in the air and when he's covering in man. And he's got the explosiveness and the fluidity to drive on the football when he's in zone coverage as well. And he's got good instinct, which I really like. Like, he has got a lot of mileage underneath him for being a guy that's played in 4 years, right? 50 games played in 4 years, which is about an average of 12 and a half games a year. Now, last year, missing double-digit games is certainly going to put a dent in that. So, yeah, there's injury concern, but it's not like he is someone who just is consistently missing time. Like, he's still just 25 as well, which is why I think he is the best fit. Because if you gave him a 1-year contract to limit some of the risk due to that neck injury concern, if he plays 12, 13, 14-plus games this year, which you would hope he does, maybe even more, plays well at Anthony Weaver's scheme, well, then you can re-sign him or extend him, and he's 26 years old. Like, the timeline makes so much sense for Asante Samuel Jr. Plus, a healthy Asante Samuel Jr. is a legit outside corner for the Dolphins. A legit one. Would immediately be your CB1. Is he a CB1 in the NFL? I don't think that's what his role should be. I don't think he is. Like, to me, he primarily should be on a good cornerback room, a CB2. But he could be a CB1 for the Dolphins considering what they have. And Miami is going to have to go up against a lot of good wide receivers this season. You look at their schedule, they play the Patriots twice, so you got to play Stephon Diggs. Play the Jets twice, you got to play Garrett Wilson. You got to play the Colts in week 1, that's Michael Pittman Jr. Play the Chargers, Ladd McConkey. Play the Commanders, which probably will be Terry McLaurin. You play the Steelers, so DK Metcalf. You play the Bengals, so you have to play both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You play the Bucks, so you got to play both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You play a lot of good wide receivers, man. And there's so many good wide receivers in the NFL as a whole nowadays that you're always going to be playing them. You're playing a lot of dudes, which means you need some dudes. And no offense to Cam Smith and Storm Duck, but to this point, and what I've seen, they are not guys I would feel very comfortable about going up against some of those wide receivers I just mentioned. The only corner I trust is Kader Kohou, who had an excellent season in coverage last year, but he is a predominantly nickel guy. He is too small. He can't go outside and guard a Mike Evans, a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, a Stephon Diggs, a Garrett Wilson. They come in the slot, okay, I'll trust Kader Kohou to take him on a route. But playing on the boundary, Kader can't do that. So you need to get better at that spot with Ramsey on the outs. And as I have said it so often in the offseason, cannot trust Cam Smith or Storm Duck. So bring in Asante Samuel Jr. And if they do sign Asante Samuel Jr., we'll be breaking it down and having a very fun time on the show. So hit that sub button for content every day, 100% free. We'll have minicamp coverage, or we had minicamp coverage. We have it all here on the channel. So subscribe and join us. Now, I want to take the time at the end of today's show. How about this underrated free agent target? Because on that free agent target, or best free agents available under 30 years old list, Jack Jones was on there. And I kind of forgot he was a free agent. Now, I wouldn't label him as a perfect target, but what if the Dolphins went over and signed the former day 3 pick, former Patriot, former Las Vegas Raider? He's got relatively solid career coverage numbers. According to Pro Football Focus, 92.6 QB rating when targeted. That is flipped, by the way. Excuse me. That is 16 PBUs, 7 interceptions. He does not have 16 interceptions. That would be insane. Not bad numbers for Jack Jones. Now, there's a lot to question when it comes to Jack Jones because he's a little bit of a head case at times and has some off-the-field concerns, which I don't love. But I could be very intrigued with adding him. I think he's more talented than anyone you got on the roster right now. Maurice Moton talked about Jack Jones as a free agent. I wanted to show what he had to say. Said that Jones had an up and down 2024 season that included disciplinary first quarter benching following a lackluster effort in week 3. But he led the team in pass breakup 16 and interceptions 3 for the campaign, but also gave up 8 touchdowns in coverage. So there's mixed numbers on what Jack Jones did in coverage. He's also an absolute wild card in the locker room. You saw him get benched a couple times and put away from the team in New England. You saw him then get released halfway through the year, latch on with Las Vegas, and have issues with Antonio Pierce, who was like a father figure to him, where they worked together at Arizona State, where Jack Jones went to college. And that's the one concern you have with Jack Jones. If he couldn't work with the person that knows him the most, loves him the most, and knows how to get the best out of him, and Antonio Pierce, will he work anywhere else in the league? So that is the one question you would have about Jack Jones, but I wanted to talk about the idea of maybe signing the former Arizona State corner. So let me know, before I give you my full thoughts, do you have interest in Jack Jones? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I think, based off where we're at right now, he would be the most talented cornerback on the roster. That includes Kader Kohou, Storm Duck, Cam Smith, Jason Marshall Jr., everybody on the roster. Jack Jones is more talented than them. But that baggage of the off the field, the locker room, do you want to add that to a group that has had some culture question marks over the past 3 seasons already? I don't know. Let's throw it back to Maurice. If Jones focuses on making simple plays rather than spectacular ones, he could be a solid starting corner. However, his departure and benching at his previous spots are red flags. Still, Jones could be a serviceable veteran starter for a team that needs an experienced cover defender on the boundary. Like, that's my point. Like, he's experienced. He could cover on the boundary, and he's a playmaking corner. In a rough 2024 season, there's no doubt about that. But you watched him in his first 2 years, 2022, 2023, he was really good in coverage, man. He really, really was. Now, in 2024, it wasn't as good. He gave up a QB rating of 115.8. That is pretty bad, man. That is rough. And to make it worse, according to Pro Football Focus, he gave up 10 touchdowns. Maurice said 8. Jack has 10 according to PFF. Not ideal. Not ideal. Now, could you get the best out of him? Maybe. And one thing that would probably put a plus in the Jack Jones box is that he would be a very cheap option. At this point, with his concerns off the field and in the locker room and his struggled play last year, I don't think he is going to be getting a big contract. Hell, he might not get one in general. So, just another option out there that I wanted to talk about on the show. Clearly still want Asante Samuel Jr., but I figured, hey, why not? Let's talk a little bit about Jack Jones. And that's why I sub the channel, because breaking down everything. And if the Dolphins do make a signing at corner, we'll have you covered with a video. It's a lot of fun talking Fins football every day. And hopefully a good season's on the horizon. Go Fins. All right, final segment in the books. Shout out to Lux Texan with a $10 super chat. We're praying for you, Frank. Fins up, baby. Let's go. That's what I love. I hope Frank is still here and he saw that message, because we're a family here at the channel that support one another. Might disagree sometimes on what's best for the football team, but we're still a family and just want to see it succeed. I'm just doing shots now for $10 super chat. Shout out to you, Lux Texan. Frank's still here, so that's awesome to see. All right. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. 6:20 on the East Coast, 5:20 Central Time. We'll stay live here for another minute or a half or two. If any more super chats come in, we'll talk about it. have any questions, super chat to ask them, and we'll get that on screen and have a discussion. If not, we're going to sign off. See you live next Tuesday. It's on the 17th. And, yeah. And we'll have videos out the rest of the week. So we'll give it a minute and a half or so, and then nothing comes in. Call it a day. Appreciate the 70 people still watching. Lopez is going to put on a 2-minute timer. No Jack Jones lost Texan. Listen, I would still rather go Rasul Douglas. I'd still rather go Gilmore. I'd still rather go Asante Samuel Jr. But I just figured we should talk about another one just in case. Crazy, crazy, crazy. One minute to go on the shot clock here. Ooh, look at Jordan Phillips work on this sled. That's a nice video to see there. Oh, man. $20 seconds to go. Ooh, what's happening up there? Oh, random buzz. Tanner Connor was on Aux today at the Orange playlist. Rate his 5-song playlist for the Orange jersey today. Lopez, ready? Baby I'm Back by the Kid Leroy and Gunna. Remember the Name from Fort Minor. Beverly Hills from Shabuzi. 92 Explorer from Post Malone. I'm On One from DJ Khaled. Scale 1 to 10. Decimals needed. I've got my number.
I'm thinking like a 6.4, 6.5. Some of them I just don't know if I could like get hyped to and just, amped up and like go play football too.
Wow, my number was 6.3.
Okay.
So I like the song 92 Explorer from Post Malone is actually a good song. I like that song. Baby I'm Back from Kid Leroy and Gunna is good. And I'm On One from Khaled's good. But I would agree with you. I don't know if it's going to fire me up to play some football.
Yeah.
So, 6.3 for me. 6.3. All right, I'll do it for today's live show. Appreciate everybody that came in and hung out with us here. We will see you live again next Tuesday. Videos out every single day in between them. As always, good talking Fins with y'all. Peace out, folks. Go Dolphins.